Something of immense consequence has arrived in the world in a very stealthy mode. And although it hasn't registered on the radar screens of the world, it's about to have a major impact upon all realms of human thought. The sciences, technology, arts, humanities. And that's because it's going to enable the last steps in creating human to transhuman level intelligence in machines. Even more important than that, it's about to provide a vehicle for our very immortality. What we're going to see is a mirror into ourselves. We will witness the limitations of our intelligence, the mundane origin of our consciousness. It will create a debate larger than that of cloning or of Darwin.
Beginning in the 1950s, researchers began to theorize about the possibility of building simulated brains in the laboratory. Their medium was mathematics, and their first attempts to create artificial intelligence were computer programs. The fledgling discipline attracted some of the most original thinkers of that age. With the optimism of youth, many predicted it would only be a few decades before machine intelligence reached or surpassed human intelligence.
I find that difficult to imagine. I guess the simple answer is only if people are stupid enough to let them become smarter than ourselves. I guess theoretically it's possible. They can assume artificial intelligence, and if that can then self-perpetuate, it may be the case.
I mean, technology advances have been amazing just in the last 100 years. I mean, it's hard to say whether or not it could actually be possible. But sure, why not? I think eventually maybe it could pose a problem, I guess, if technology gets too advanced.
Like, you know, robotic intelligence can get to the point where they can actually think and feel like humans, but realistically speaking, I don't think that's going to happen ever. So
they will become smarter than we are because they're going to be programmed by us, so they can't go beyond that.
To outsiders, it looks as though there's a lot of activity going around, a lot of different kinds of thoughts about how to build machines that think. And really, there aren't that many schools out there. There is a school called Expert or Production Systems, where a programmer writes down the rules and fires them to create deductive and inductive logic, essentially following decision trees to arrive at conclusions. There are genetic programmers, people who basically emulate Darwinian evolution to produce new ideas and plans of action. And there are traditional neural network practitioners out there who are building perceptrons, and they are involved in pattern recognition and classifying patterns from the external world.
But do speed and complexity equate to intelligence? Do lightning-fast calculations produce the intuition and insights behind what we consider profound discovery, artistic creation, and invention?
If I were meeting you for the first time, I'd be very tempted to talk about what I consider to be the most important thing in the world. A form of artificial intelligence that can learn on its own, create on its own, and attain consciousness.
After a successful career as a physicist with McDonnell Douglas, Dr. Stephen Thaler founded a company devoted to the full-time development of a radically new kind of artificial intelligence, inspired by the simulated death of trained artificial neural networks. Until the time of these breakthrough experiments, artificial neural networks had been used only to emulate the way the brain processes information streaming in from the external world. In contrast, artificial intelligence has always been built by human beings. Whether expert systems, genetic algorithms, or traditional neural nets, computer programmers have agonized over writing code. Machine intelligence that autonomously bootstraps itself from knowing nothing whatsoever to progressively higher levels of creative prowess has not been available until now. Despite their limited abilities, other forms of artificial intelligence do not have the capability to generate solutions to complex problems having more than 10 to 20 dimensions. Million-dimensional problems, such as the generation of hypothetical portraits, can be accomplished via a creativity machine on a single personal computer. But in spite of the speed and the complexity of computers, do they actually think? Can they make the transition from simply running human-generated scripts to truly brain-like machines that autonomously drink in knowledge about the world and then generate ideas that transcend such direct experience?
I think it's instructive to think for a moment about why nature has chosen neural networks as the basis of cognition. When we think about the universe in the broadest possible sense, it consists of two things: entities and interconnections. The entities can range from subatomic particles to atoms to molecules to people and societies. The interactions can range from the purely physical to the sociological. Let's think about the purpose of the brain. The brain is that organ that is used by the host organism to anticipate danger and opportunity in the external world. To form a precise model of that world, which is network-based, what more logical choice than a network? A neural network, in which there are entities and there are interconnections.
The hundreds of billions of neurons in our brains are interconnected via gap-like structures called synapses. All mental activity stems from the exchange of molecules and electrical energy across these gaps. As our brains observe the world, the strength of signals across these gaps grow weaker or stronger in response to the information streaming in from the environment. Colonies of neurons automatically interconnect themselves to form token representations of recurring entities in the environment. These neural tokens interconnect themselves to capture the relationships between the entities they represent. In an artificial neural net, biological neurons are emulated via switch-like mathematical equations or physical devices called nodes that are linked together via mathematical or physical connections. Such linkages automatically thicken or thin to allow the network as a whole to capture both memories and complex relationships from a data environment. Effectively, the network grows its own logic circuits using extremely simple rules that can arise spontaneously from unintelligent natural means. As nodes within an artificial neural network connect themselves to absorb models of the data environment, distributed colonies of nodes interconnect to form token representations of and relationships between frequently repeated themes or entities within that stream.
In creating these computer programs, the wisdom contained in the biological neural networks of the computer programmer were basically captured in a series of steps and implanted on these machines.
But Dr. Thaler has gone much further. He has made a discovery that has enabled computers to do much more than just carry out a programmer's commands. The machines he makes learn to think for themselves and dream well beyond their direct experience.
Perceptrons are a special kind of neural network that were investigated, believe it or not, during World War II. They essentially describe to us how raw sensory input, electromagnetic radiation, acoustic waves, tactile sensation, and so forth, fall on the sensory apparatus and are mapped to perceptions or opinions within the recesses of the brain.
His breakthrough came in the mid-70s when he began experimenting with a special kind of neural network called a perceptron. These networks had been fashioned by computational psychologists to model how the neural networks of the brain process raw sensory information to form subjective feelings about them. In effect, one numerical pattern representing an environmental stimulus fell on the input layers of these nets, triggering associated numerical